Hello, everyone. Welcome to the International Kids Film Festival. I'm Neha. One of our main objectives here at IKFF has been to celebrate diversity. Diversity of all kinds, diversity in all manners. After all, if we were all the same, it would be a very boring world, isn't it? But it takes a lot of hard work to embrace this diversity, to overcome our own conditioning and open our minds and hearts to a different way of living, a different way of being. And this is what I ask of you today. It's time we take sexual orientation out of the closet, start conversations on gender, and help our kids build a more inclusive society. To help us in this journey today, I have some special guests. So I'm going to start introducing them one by one. We have with us today Richa Vashishth. Richa is an independent mental health professional and queer rights activist working at the intersections of gender and sexuality since 2014, with a postgraduate degree in clinical psychology from SNDT University, Mumbai. Her counseling practice and worldview is queer affirmative, multicultural, and now practicing being trauma-informed. She sees a wide range of clients from diverse backgrounds and works as a consultant with various companies. Hi, Richa. We're very happy to have you on board.
Hi, super excited to be a part of it.
Yes. Our next guest is Vedica Saxena. Vedica Saxena has worn many hats over the years. She's been a model, soft skills trainer, marketing executive, a writer, and a TEDx speaker too. Currently, she's the project director with Tagore International School in Delhi, where she's helping run gender sensitization workshops and has been successful in creating a student community that is empathetic, sensitive, and proactive, and is working towards an inclusive society. Vedika, we are so happy to have you on board. I think Tagore International is, I think, the only school in the country which is doing something in this
Yes.
area.
Yes. Yeah, Tagore in the entire country is the first pioneer school which is leading a student-led initiative of breaking barriers, which I will be discussing. So
Yes.
I'm very proud to represent the school, and I'm looking forward to this panel today. Thank you.
Absolutely, same here. Then, of course, we have Chitra Palekar. Chitra is a theater actor, writer, and filmmaker living in Mumbai. She is also the proud mother of Shalmali, her only child who identifies as a lesbian. Shalmali came out to her mother in 1993, and that changed many things for Chitra and opened up her world. Chitra was one of the 19 petitioners in the Supreme Court Parents Petition made in 2010. She's also the founder member of Sweekar, the Rainbow Parents. Hi, Chitra. Very happy to have you here.
I too am very happy because it gives me an opportunity to once again learn so many things which as a parent, I wouldn't know, and then pass it on to other parents.
Thank you. We are looking forward to learning a lot of things from you, actually. Then, of course, we have our youngest panelist here, 21-year-old Srushti Mane. She is a student of architecture in Mumbai. She identifies as queer. At the age of 17, Srushti started LGBT Mumbai page on various social media platforms to provide a space to teenagers to openly talk about LGBTQIA issues. Today, LGBT Mumbai has almost 20,000 followers on Instagram. In their own words, they advocate and take a stand for an individual's equal rights, regardless of their sex, gender, or sexual orientation. Hi, Srushti.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
Hi.
I'm really glad to be a part of this because this is literally like we require it now. It's people are saying that it's too late. Is it too early for such a conversation? And I'm saying no, it's too late. We need to start somewhere. So I think this is a great initiative, and I'm really glad to be a part of this.
Same here, Srushti. And finally, our guest from Canada, we have Christina. Christina's documentary, Beauty, it's a fantastic film, which we are very honored to be screening at IKFF this year. So Christina began her foray into filmmaking in 1996 and started making her own films in 2004 after co-producing the film Chicks with Sticks. She's also worked in reality TV, but then she realized she wanted to be closer to the creative process rather than just producing. She's an artist who wants to express that through writing and directing. She was drawn into doing her own documentaries before continuing to work in series TV, factual TV, writing, directing, producing, and story editing. Christina, you're doing it all basically, right?
Well, I don't know if I would say that, but um, certainly I've been the kind of filmmaker who sort of tries to work in every department in order to really understand the process fully. So, yeah, and I'm really thrilled to be here because the issues that we're discussing today, and I think that we're all super committed to, and diversity in general, are just very close to my heart. And I'm so thrilled to meet you all and to be here with such strong and brilliant women. Thank you.
Same here, Christina. Same here. And we're all big fans of your film Beauty. It really touches you when you watch it for the first time. I've seen it many times, and every time I watch it, I see something new in it. Well, let's get started. Richa, I'm going to start with you. Just want to get an idea of what is happening right now. What's the current state of affairs? Of course, in 2018, homosexual acts were decriminalized, but you still have the Transgender Persons Act, which is there. So it's a mixed bag going on legally. But what about on the social front? I mean, do you see more acceptance or more tolerance for the LGBTQ community around you?
Okay, thanks a lot for that question, Neha. I think given that I come with a background in mental health, I would probably give a mental health perspective, because I feel like a lot of what you just asked right now, I can see the other four panelists, and I don't know, like everybody can actually contribute to this question. But yes, I think when you ask this question, what's happening right now, the only thing that's coming into my mind is COVID-19, and how COVID-19 has really affected queer people's lives in India. And this literally happened like March end, when India went into an entire strict like lockdown, and nobody was prepared for it. I think acceptance is a larger thing that we're all looking for. But in the last so many months, what I have realized is that there are so many queer people who've not been safe in their own homes. There has been an increase, of queer phobia happening within those four walls that a lot of us will not be aware of, right? Like, if I have queer neighbors, for example, like whoever is listening to this right now, if you have queer neighbors, you have no idea if people are within safe environments, if people are in safe homes or not. Like, so many clients, I took all my practice online. Like, I have been virtually working since the end of March, and people have been in such difficult situations while reaching out to me. Like, there are people going to the bathrooms and talking to me, there are people going to a terrace and talking to me. If you're in Mumbai, you'll also realize that Mumbai homes are not too big, and kind of getting the space to be able to talk to a therapist because you want to talk about your identity, you suddenly are not feeling heard, you're not feeling seen. And this is a lot for young queer people especially to deal with at this moment. And I remember, Neha, I was talking to you a while back, some days ago, about how, if there are people who are getting the help, getting the support, reaching out, but there's also a huge set of people who don't really have access to help. And I think that's something that I know, Srushti would be able to cover at some point, about people who are younger than 18. What is it that, how are they taking care of themselves at this time, especially during the pandemic? So yeah, like, as we're talking about safety, as we're talking about acceptance, we are heading in a direction. We are talking about diversity, inclusion, but a larger population of the country who identify as LGBTQ, LGBTQIA plus, are still very unsafe in their homes. And COVID-19 has been like the tipping point for mental health getting affected of queer people.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, I think you've asked my next question. I mean, Srushti, Vedika would want you to answer this about, yes, you have, it's a very tough time for minorities everywhere, for the LGBTQ plus community. And if you talk about like queer kids, I'm sure it's a completely different, and it's even worse. So, Srushti, Vedika, have you come across anything, and what would you say about it? Srushti, would you like to go first?
Yes. So as much as we all understand that, human beings are, entitled to basic rights like education, employment, healthcare, and most importantly, self-identification. And that something in young people, because we start identifying ourselves at a very younger age. And trans person rights, that is like trans person bill and trans person rights of 2019, they're so barbaric because they're literally an assault and violence on individuals, trans people, individuals. It's so bad, this particular, because it's literally scrutinizing violence, and it just breaks my heart, because there's like, we've not been given, a chance for self-identification. So literally a district magistrate will, identify what an individual's gender is. So our government, Indian government, has massively failed to understand the concept that, gender is a spectrum and different people fall on different lines, and there is just no particular box that you can try to fit in people.
True. Yeah, that's the problem with the law, and I think everyone's talking about that. And what about the current situation? I mean, in the current pandemic, have you sort of through your LGBT Mumbai page sort of come across queer kids talking more to you, coming out to more to you, or coming up with more problems or very specific problems?
A lot actually, a lot actually. The most of the problems are, staying in the same household, and then constantly, it's traumatizing to stay in negative spaces where it's all the time, all you hear is, being denuded and abused. So a lot of people, like trans kids, a lot of queer kids, that, like, again, it's like going back in the closet. We've spent our lives coming out, and now again, because of the pandemic, we're again going in the closet again, keeping it like our lives secret again. And plus, because we're not allowed to go out, so it at least for people who are closeted, the moment they used to step out of the house, there was this feeling that, I get to do things on my own, I get to be who I am. So 24/7, if an individual is not getting to be who they are, the amount of trauma that keeps building up on individuals, it's really bad. So all of them, I mean, these queer individuals keep reaching out to us, and other than, having, like, offering them, offering them, hey, we are here for you, and, offering them therapists, or, mental health professionals to talk to, there isn't really much that we can do at, like, such a point. And it's sad, like, I feel helpless all the time, but there is very little that can be done at this point, from, one-on-one basis like that, because we're still stuck in those four constricted walls all over again.
Yeah, true. Chitra, would you like to add something here? Because you've
Yeah.
actually been, you've seen everything. I mean, since the early 90s, you've seen it all,
Well,
how things have changed in India.
Yeah, but before I go to what I have seen before, in 93 and since then, I'd like to say one or two things on what Richa and Srushti said. Yeah. I talk to Richa because I don't get direct phone calls or messages, you see. I don't know the young community that much. My daughter's abroad. But people like Richa and many other younger activists, or, mental health professionals, they know me and they give me information. I have been thinking that, yes, pandemic has really made it, it has been very suffocating, very bad. But very honestly, that's not the only thing. Today, especially because we are talking to teachers and parents, I want to say this, that the root cause is not pandemics. The root cause is parents' non-acceptance. Because many of the things, I know that the LGBTQIA plus children have it really bad. But there are heterosexual children also who may be going in different ways, and trans children may be going in another way. So everybody's getting affected. But these people are getting affected more. Why? Because their parents have not accepted it. And that is something all parents must think, that what makes them throw out their kids? If they are putting lipstick or if they are putting earrings, in such a case, they wouldn't mind making them die rather than looking after them? I mean, don't they love them? Do other things more important? And this is the work we are doing in Sweekar. I know that may be another question, but very honestly, Sweekar would be, I'll bring it in for every question.
Absolutely.
Well, having said that, and I hope the parents and teachers really think about it, that, where is the root cause? If tomorrow, after many years, another pandemic comes, will these children be better off if they have been accepted, they have been protected in their own families? That's a thing which I want people to think. You still want me to go on to 93 or?
Yes, I would.
I've taken a bit long.
No problem.
Okay.
I want to
When,
know about your experience. Yes.
When my daughter came out to me in 1993, I always called, oh God, it is such an old story. But I suppose that's true even today. But when my daughter came out, I accepted her immediately. But those times were different. I'm not saying they were better or they were really bad from the point of view of there was no information. Absolutely no internet, nothing, but not even, and it was criminal. 377 was very much in existence. Then why did I accept her immediately? I only knew two letters, L and G. I didn't know LGBT, the whole spectrum. I didn't know. I learned it all much later, recently, after maybe Sweekar. I didn't know. Those days, trans people were called transvestites. And I learned it only because we were asked to make a film and I got some material and I read. So it was so difficult in that sense. But if you ask me personally, whether it was difficult for me or for my family, then I would say no.
Okay.
Absolutely no.
Yeah.
The reasons were, to be fast. One was that when Shalmali came out, she had accepted herself. She came out when she was just 21 and she had just finished her, BA. I think she studied a lot. She studied these books in either a college library or British Council, or she had good professors, and they had a counselor. See, all these things I'm purposely saying. In Xavier's, they had a counselor.
Yes.
So she didn't come to me, which still makes me feel a bit bad. But, I can understand. She was worried. She was scared, like any other LGBTQIA kid. But she prepared herself, was confident that it is not unnatural. She internalized her being a lesbian, and then she came out to me. So when she came out to me, she looked the same. She was confident. She was trying to explain to me that, Amma, it's only a difference. That's all. Otherwise, I'm the same person. It's a small difference, like being a lefty. Your one child most children would be writing with right hand or playing cricket, and some children would use their left hand. It's like that. We are in minority, that's all. And I'm the same. And I said, you don't have to say that. I can see you are the same. And you know what I felt? If Shalmali says she's a lesbian, then there must be nothing bad or wrong about being a lesbian. That much I loved her. It didn't matter to me whether there was 377. I loved her. And that's all that mattered. She has trusted me. She has come and, confided in me. And if I give her support, she will flower. She will face the society. I brought her up to do that. That's how I felt. So it was not difficult. And everybody in the family accepted her. Though I must say that after a few months, she went abroad for her further studies. Then sometimes I felt a little lonely because I knew no other parent.
Yeah.
Sweekar has given me that family, but I didn't know anyone. So it's not that I wanted to share and cry or something, because I didn't cry even when I accepted. I may have cried because she had confided in me and I was so moved.
Yeah.
For me, acceptance came first. information came later.
Yeah.
And it was only out of curiosity to know my child's world, to understand her better. That's all it was. However, I do accept that so for some parents who come from different backgrounds, it may be the information can help them to accept. That also
Absolutely.
I agree. Okay. So I've taken a long time.
No worries. I think that's a beautiful story, and it's very inspiring. Also, especially in a country like India, where we are so thoroughly conditioned to believe, in just two genders. I mean, we don't even know. Like, most people don't even know that gender is a spectrum, or sexuality is a spectrum. So
I didn't know.
coming from that, it's quite commendable that you accepted your child so easily. Vedika, in the work, I'm going to
Thank
talk
you.
about the Breaking Barriers campaign after a bit, but just in the work that you've been doing, and you're also working in like one of the sort of top-notch private schools in Delhi. How have you seen the sort of acceptance, or how inclusive is the environment around you?
Yes, I think it's a very pertinent question, because when we talk about educational institutions, especially schools, it's very, very important to have inclusive environment, because you're nurturing mindsets and you want them to grow into respectful citizens, empathetic citizens. So that's what we do at school. So we definitely have a school counselor, we have a junior school counselor, we have a senior school counselor, and we have policies in place that justify the inclusivity of the school environment. So if there's anybody who's found bullying or discriminating anybody else verbally, non-verbally, so it straight away goes to the management and action is taken.
Mhm.
And also when we talk about environment, I would like to say that we have various other clubs as well. Like, we have a mental health awareness club under the name of peer mentoring, where our children are taught right from nursery onwards. They are taught to love and accept each other, embrace each other's differences through various stories. It could be gender neutral storybooks, it could be talking out to counselors, it could be talking to your parents. So inclusion is not just about gender or sexuality, but it's also about, for example, disabled or physically challenged child. So we have VI, visually impaired children, studying in the same classroom as the other students. So when we talk about inclusion, it's all this. So anybody who walks into our school, our children don't throw a second glance to say, oh, what's wrong, or why is this person so different from what I am? Because for them, it's a routine lifestyle. It's so we're trying to normalize everything under the same roof. So that is inclusion for us.
Beautiful.
And children are so confident that they talk. Like, the most important thing that we believe in is the power of conversations. So our students are open, they have open dialogues with each other. It could be multicultural, it could be multi, gender based, sexual orientation. Like, the children would come up and talk about sexuality in open, and we don't say, oh, please, keep quiet, you're not allowed to talk something like this because it's too early for you to talk. No, we don't have any set rules. So if you have an opinion, you come forward and give it out. So you're voicing your opinion. That is another reason that our children are not shy, and they are open to giving their views. So this is a voluntary based campaign that we have in school, and there are a couple of them. Breaking Barriers is one off campaign. They have various social initiatives, and the reason we have these is to make our children empathetic. Also, when they leave school, they should render their skills and their services to the community in whatever ways possible. So this is what we do as part of inclusion.
This is so heartening to hear, right? Yeah, it really
And they're
gladdens
all
your heart.
student-led initiatives. It's not that there's a teacher monitoring the students. Of course, I am there. I'm heading all these social awareness campaigns, but I push my children in the forefront. I'm just backing them up with information, with guidance probably, but they are always in the forefront leading. So we want them to be independent.
No, fantastic. I mean,
Super.
also the thing is, I think every school, every educator wants to say that we are being inclusive, and, you are talking about, inclusivity in our daily lives, or in the way we are teaching our children. But somehow, sex, gender, sexuality, they always get left behind in India. I mean, they are still taboo words. and parents and schools don't want to discuss those, unfortunately. So it's just commendable that you guys are doing it, which also sort of what you said about teaching children right from kindergarten, the values of inclusivity, and inclusivity in the real sense. That sort of brings me to Christina's lovely film Beauty, because actually that's what it's about. It's about younger children sort of taking their own life into their hands, taking decisions, and having this most importantly, having the support of their parents and the society around them. Just to give you a quick synopsis, Beauty explores the lives of 5 gender creative kids, each uniquely engaged in shaping their ideas of what it means to be fully human, whether it's dealing with bullies, having discussions with their parents, or navigating the new waters of relationships. Bex, Lily, Fox, True, and Milo talk about their experiences and their determination to live in authenticity. Let me show you a trailer for those of our viewers who've not seen the film yet. I would, of course, highly recommend that after this, please go on our IKFF on the KRAYON app and have a look at Beauty. It's truly quite something. Just one sec. Sorry, there's a...
Should we all, put our videos off? Because I remember from another panel when you were showing a video, if you all can put our
We'll do
videos
that.
off,
Yeah.
lesser
Do that.
distraction.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, please do that.
Yeah. And even mute.
Yes. Thank you. Here's the trailer of Beauty for everyone.
Sometimes it's easy to think like it would just be less stressful just to fit in, but then I'm not really being myself, and I find that that's an important part of living life, because if everybody's trying to be like everybody else and everybody's ended up copying somebody, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yes. Well,
Indeed, a very beautiful one. Very, very beautiful. Every child must see, and every parent also must watch.
Yeah.
absolutely.
That was a very short clip.
Yeah,
So,
it
but I'm glad
doesn't-
you could get a sense of it.
Yes, that's why I also sort of spoke about the film a bit. Christina, I mean, I'd like to come to you now. Like, it's such a lovely film. What prompted you in the first place to make it?
Well, if I may, Neha, I'd love to go back a bit and just say again how wonderful it is to be here with you all, and to hear your experiences, and to hear the beautiful work that each of you are doing. I so deeply resonate with it, and I just so honor all of you in each of your settings for how you're contributing to just really moving us all forward. Thank you. And Chitra, I just hearing you speak as a parent really brought forward something to me that is absolutely the flame under this film, and that is, what if each of us were really 100% loved and accepted exactly as we are, exactly for being who we are? And if we could give that as well to our children and to our communities, approaching everybody with curiosity and with genuine interest and willingness to be surprised and led and taught, that would make such a difference and in terms of building the kind of world I think we all want to be part of, that you've been so eloquently describing today.
Thank you.
And so, thank you, truly thank you. I came out as a lesbian in 1981, and I was disowned and disinherited. And we tend to think, I think people perhaps, I don't know, it's a stereotype. There are so many stereotypes floating around of all of the places that we live and the spaces we inhabit, but certainly one of Canada is that it's a place where these kinds of things are no longer an issue, or they haven't been for a long time, or there's no prejudice, or there's safety for everybody, and that is just really not true. We have a different situation, but we all have different situations, and they all have their own nuances and their own advances and risks and dangers and rights that still have not yet been won. And so really it's that wanting to be part of creating a space where each of us can show up and be loved that is what's underneath this film. I started to, I have trans people, I've had trans people in my life, and I began to meet children who identified as trans. And I thought that the purity with which they experienced themselves, in contrast to everything that they were being told about what gender needed to look like or what their self-experience needed to be, and their ability to hold on to that and the courage they had to say it to their parents, on whom their lives completely depended, and with such clarity and such gentleness, really, such willingness to teach. I just found it so incredibly moving. And I've also been thinking about gender since I really began to identify as a feminist in the late 70s, you know, and sort of how limited we are, how polarized we've become, how, in my view, we've become just caricatures of what it means to be female and male. You know, that there's so much more space for aliveness that we have been traumatized out of inhabiting, you know, to the work that you're doing as well, Richa. I just love how you described what you're doing and the work that all of you are doing. So, so I had that foundation that gave me the readiness and the desire to, when I began to be aware that this was going on and that there were these children identifying themselves so much earlier, that I just went, yes, this is my next film. This is the film I have to make. And how much more trauma by allowing children to lead us early on in their lives, how much more trauma can we avoid for people who have to wait their whole lives, and then they come out when they're 60 and they look like men, and people don't know how to relate to them, and then they have to go through all of that in such a more difficult way, potentially. And of course, that takes enormous courage too, but that's really where the film came from for me.
Wow. Yeah, that's true, actually, what you said. Yeah, it's but you know, you were shooting with, you know, this decision to shoot with children. How easy was it? You know, because, and were there any problems, like in India, for instance? I know, like I was talking to Richa, and she said even counseling, individuals younger than 18
Yes.
obviously requires like a lot of permissions and things like that. So
Yes.
when you were shooting, how do you go about finding these kids, one?
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
get the permission
Sorry.
and stuff to show them in this setting and show them how they truly are?
Thank you, Neha, for that question. Yeah. Yes, I mean, there are lots of layers, honestly, to this. I think I'd like to preface my answer by saying one of the big sorrows for me about this film is that I was only able to work with children who did fully have the support of their families and their parents.
Yeah.
Because I would love to have portrayed the reality of the majority of kids who don't have that. But of course, you can't get access to do that, right? Because I did have somebody who was in a fundamentalist Christian family, and her mother really wanted to support her, but she was reliant on her estranged husband for financial support and the extended family, and it was just too risky, and we couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it anyway, and certainly she wouldn't. So so the process was, you know, reaching out to networks that I was aware of, and it was a gradual process of building trust, not just with the children and their families, but much earlier than that, gaining individual trust of people who I knew were running networks of support, meeting with them. You know, I think of filmmaking really as an extension of my life, in that it's really all about building relationships of integrity. Otherwise, you can't do the work. And so people often say to me things like, well, how do you gain their trust? And I just sort of say, well, how do you gain anybody's trust? By showing up, right? By being trustworthy, really. And that is just built on experience. There's no shortcut. And I wouldn't push people to that. So I reached out to somebody who I knew who had a network for gender creative kids that was based in Montreal. And she was the first person who I really began to have conversations with, who started to trust me. The fact that we had some language in common helped and experience, and that I, of course, that I'd been working in the feminist movement and in the violence against women's movement for a long time. I've got a varied history. I come to filmmaking with a big background of doing other things. So, and that of course informs what I do. And so she put me in touch with, well, first of all, with Fox. It was Kiko Asano who put me in touch with Fox, who at the time identified as female and now identifies as non-binary. And then Fox knew some other people and we spoke to them. And then in the meantime, I also was feeling relationships out in Vancouver and built a relationship with a local psychologist here who, you know, put me in touch with people. And then there were people I knew. And so it was just a gradual process, honestly, of building a network. And I was so thrilled as well to be able to build other kinds of diversity into the film in a very natural way as I went. It wasn't, although of course Canada is a very, well, there's lots of racism here. Let's just be clear about that. But there's, and lots of racialized communities, but it is also a country of immigrants. There are many, many colors, many cultures, many ways of being here. And so it was important for me always that the people in the film really represent the makeup of Canada and not just a small slice of people who I thought might be, I don't know what, you know, more acceptable to somebody. But yeah, I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, and more. I mean, much more. So actually, there's just so much to talk to about. You know, each one of you. It's sort of bungling my mind a bit. But from what you just said, Christina. So what you also mean is that what you showed is actually the exception and not the norm. I mean,
yeah,
there were these
really.
You know, and obviously the situation. Sorry, yeah.
Or I would temper that a little. I wouldn't say that it's absolutely the exception. I would say that in Canada there is a lot of lip service acceptance of people who inhabit different places on the gender spectrum, whether they identify as trans or not. There is a lot of awareness that people should, and Canadians are pretty good at getting a handle of the language and then going, oh yeah, I'm cool, or I have a trans friend, you know. But as we all know, so many personal wounds, and what a woman whose work I'm familiar with called Diane Arensaf calls gender ghosts, you know, that each of us live with, that really drive our actual feelings and our actual behavior, you know. And so there's lip service, but it doesn't always connect deeply, so that, for example, when it shows up in your own family, you're just like, no, I don't accept it, right? I'm losing track of what your question was, but I would just say that there is a generalized sort of acceptance, and we've had same-sex marriage here for 10 years, and certainly being trans is not illegal, and surgery is more and more available, and there are funds becoming available to support that, and there are parts of it that are under our healthcare system so that you can access without paying. That work is still ongoing, but I would say that there's a generalized acceptance, which doesn't mean that people aren't still beat up on the street.
We still have a lot.
And it depends where you are. It depends where you are, as it does in every country, right? Whether you're in a big progressive city, or whether you're in a small, less progressive place, or a small progressive place and a big right-wing city, you know, it just varies.
True. Absolutely. That brings me to you, Srushti, that, you know, what is your story like? I mean, at 17, you know, you're still just 21. And at 17, you started a social media page. Uh, how did that come about? And how easy has your journey been? You know?
Not that easy actually, because in India we still have it really tough.
Of
I think
course.
we have it tough everywhere, but there is just like less acceptance over here. And how we were talking about acceptance, I think that is the most important thing because there was no acceptance, which is why the page came into the picture.
Yeah.
And there was also mention of representation
Mm-hmm.
that. So this might sound silly, but I did not enjoy the movie Batman. I enjoyed Wonder Woman. Why? Because I was able to relate to her more. That she's a woman and she's doing wonderful things. So I was able to relate to her more. So when I was, still in the closet, halfway throughout, I had a hard time relating to people, much elder because they were the ones, again, in India, the ones we are staying in India, if we again belong to a certain class, we again belong to a certain part of the society, only then, some people have it easier to come out. So when I used to see it, always used to be, elder people who have much more knowledge about it, more information, who are quite ready. And I used to see them, in their 30s and 40s coming out. And I was like, where are the teens? Because I know there might be teens, obviously. So there was just no representation. And obviously, when you see someone of your own age coming out and, you find it more relatable. And that is what boosts you to come out, to accept yourself, which is why I did not come across a page. So I created one. And since then, I think it was just 5 6 years ago that I was just in school. And even in yeah, and even in school there was a start of a conversation. I mean, now that I'm hearing from them, uh, from Tagore, I think Tagore is doing really good. But I think even 5 6 years ago it was kind of bad, because I still remember being bullied and locked in the washroom for maybe having uh, because liking for I had a liking for girls, that time. So it was the bullying and everything was so much. And I also understood because the parents never had a conversation with the kids about differences, people having alternative gender identities, sexual orientation, which is why I think the kids, if they I think even for parents, for if we don't understand something, we hate it, or if we don't understand something, we immediately start disregarding it. So I think that was a lot with LGBTQI individuals. Before the parents, before even understanding, they started hating it. And so that happened with kids. And the Indian media, the portrayal of LGBTQ identities in Indian media is derogatory. It's extremely stereotypical. It's absurd. So this is what the kids are picking up on, the derogatory representation that was shown, parents not accepting, parents not having a conversation about it. So all of that affected into different students, bullying different students for identifying different with difference.
Absolutely.
And I think that is again the whole conversation is about that, how parents really need to start. I mean, I understand it's awkward. I understand, there's less information, but now I think everything is just one click away. So I think we really need to, parents really need to take up that one step of having that conversation with your child, because you're making that child feel accepted. And that is one issue that I constantly face, because there was no conversation about LGBTQ in my family for tons and tons of years. And I always thought, who should I go to? Then it started coming out in journal. Then it became like, it was sort of a trauma. Then, your mental health started deteriorates. So it was
Come to that.
it was a yeah, it was a lot of hodgepodge sort of a journey. And then when I finally came out with the page was sort of a journal that I feel. It was, I started talking about every single thing possible out there, right from how it's not just these four identities like lesbian, bisexual, gay, and trans. It's so much more. Uh, it's just asexual, intersex. Barely anyone talked about it that time. And then how polyamory, monogamy. So the page became a people's page where everyone, whoever had a say, everyone started putting up, this is what we had to. And when you say conversations like these are coming from teenagers, that's when other teenagers are like, oh, I think I can relate to it. And how much normalization it is, and not stigmatizing it all over again. So I think it was all about that.
You've made so many points in this, Srushti, about mental health, about teenagers just needing someone to talk to, and most importantly about, the information is out there. It's just a click away. We as adults, we as the grown-ups need to just take that one little step, even before acceptance, to just go out there and find that information and learn more about it, even if we don't. In fact, there's a UNESCO study which was, I think, done last year, and I think some of you might be familiar with it. It was done in Tamil Nadu schools, and it found that and it was related to sexual orientation and gender identity related bullying. And they found that 60% of the survey's respondents were bullied in the middle and high school. 60%. So those are the numbers we are dealing with. Vedika, I want to come to you about the Breaking Barriers campaign. But before that, I just quickly want to talk to you, Richa, about what Srushti mentioned about the bullying that happens. So if you can give some idea about what queer kids, especially queer teenagers, are going through in schools and generally at home in their own in their own houses.
Yeah.
Bullying
Yeah.
and all the mental trauma that they are facing.
Right, right. Yeah, that's such an important question. So I remember once I'd spoken to Srushti about how she has people, under the age of 18 reaching out to her, and, she feels so helpless because as a therapist, I don't deal with people below the age of 18. I have ethical concerns. I'm also independently practicing. They have to, I mean, the organization I was previously working with also couldn't engage with people below the age of 18. And I realized that, wow, like, there is such a huge let's say population of people, but the proper care and support can, like, it's so difficult for care and support to actually reach them. And it's only from my clients experiences that I understand, or I won't say anything about my experience, because I just feel like I'm one of the privileged people where my identity was not something that I struggled with my sexuality. But when I am in counseling or I am in therapy, with so many different clients on a daily basis, I know it has been difficult for them since childhood, right? Whether it's been at home, whether it's been at school. And these are the years that can absolutely impact a person's mind. And so she mentioned trauma, and I would say that in the last 1 year I have been practicing to be a trauma informed therapist. And I know that all of these experiences, when you're living in a very dysfunctional family, you have your parents or your family who's absolutely not accepting of your identity, and every day you get up, you realize that your identity is invalidated, whether it is your sexuality, whether it is your gender identity. And you're literally just like, when I try understanding my clients and what they're going through, I realize that everybody is just looking at spaces to be able to be heard, to be seen. And when they don't get to do that, whether it's at their own home or whether it's at school, because they're worried that, oh, I'll be thrown out of school, I'll be subjected to bullying. Like, Srishti was brave enough to actually mention something like this right now. It's a very, very common thing that happens in schools. Like, you would say, that bathroom is a hot spot. It is a hot spot for a lot of people to get bullied. These lonely corners in schools, those areas where, I mean, I'm just thinking of different things that, clients have told me, that I don't like walking alone because I'm worried that somebody is going to come and harass me right now, and I don't have the tools to deal with it, right? So I think this is where the responsibility of an educator, of a parent, of a school, of an institution is to be able to start introducing these tools. Like, I think Vedika had briefly mentioned how mental health has started is being introduced to people, like, probably as early as when they're in kindergarten, let's say. And I think I'm just so amazed to hear that that's happening. Like, it's super amazing. I wish I had that, for example. Like, I really wish I had that to be able to, like, cope with my own mental health issues. Like, I know there's something called as social emotional learning that I feel every school needs to have when they're dealing with children, so that how to deal with things, how to cope with things. Because you can't expect a child to already have these tools, or like know how to deal with discrimination, know how to cope with any form of harassment. So all of this together, like once you get an idea of how it is, it starts affecting a person's mental health, it starts affecting them in their childhood. It only increases unless you get mental health support. And coming from a country like India, mental health support is considered a taboo, it's considered a last resort. You will not go to a therapist unless it's a breaking point. Of course, there are other issues as well, that if you are a young person, you don't really have the financial resources. It's probably very difficult to afford therapy, so you're stuck, you're really stuck here, you don't know what to do about it. And that's where I think pages like LGBT Mumbai, and right now during the pandemic, I think that a lot of different organizations have started putting their presence online, which is amazing, because there need to be so many more safer digital spaces where queer people can be seen, queer people can be heard, and somewhere where I can just go and like talk about what's happening, because clearly at home I can't.
True. True. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and I also feel that along with these spaces, what Vedika and what Tagore International School they're doing, I think if you sort of talk to your children right from kindergarten, and sort of start instilling those values of inclusivity, of diversity right from there. That, I mean, gives you a completely different world if everyone starts doing that. Vedika, I won't take your time. I mean, I want you to talk about this. How did this start? And I would want to focus on the Breaking Barriers campaign. When did it start? How and why did it start? And how's it going?
Yes. So breaking barriers definitely started way back, even before decriminalization happened or people started putting in petitions. It started in 2013, and that too, you'll be surprised to know that it was a student's idea. There were two students from the senior school who came forward to the management because the management started brainstorming that we should have social awareness initiatives in the school. So come up with ideas. So a lot of children gave different ideas, like acid attack survivors welfare association was formed. Then there was a physically challenged, where children who are physically challenged played with other children, just to show support and inclusivity. So the reason was that two children came forward and said, see, when we talk about gender equality, why are we only focusing on male and female? So that's how breaking barriers, because they felt that there was a need to break stereotypes, break mindsets, years worth of stereotyping. And so breaking barriers completely stands on human rights. And when we say human rights, it's everything, LGBTQIA plus included. And this is a voluntary campaign starting from 13 years and above. So 9 to 12 standard students participate in the campaign, they brainstorm, they talk. So the main agenda is to spread awareness in other schools across the city, because the main aim of breaking barriers is, number one, to stop discrimination, bullying against the community members, which is really, really unfortunate. Number two is to open dialogue between peers, wherein they are not shy in coming across and disclosing their sexuality, or even talking, even if they would like to explore. We don't want a child to shelter because they don't know where to go. So they're very openly talking to their peers about their own sexuality. So it's that kind. Even if I would like to summarize what even Shruti discussed, so all this problems arise because of lack of awareness with school children. And we feel that breaking barriers is important in schools, because that is how they grow their own mindsets, they form. And we need to put an end to bullying. Like you said, even toilets could be a very, very bad place to bully a person. So what we did was, we also took intensive training from NAS Foundation and KRIYA, where they trained our students for weeks on the difference between gender and sex as well. They also talk about the legal aspects of the community. They talked about the history of the community. Like Shruti very clearly mentioned, the media representation. So they raise their voice against any kind of bad media portrayal, and they talk about it in their own school, saying that okay, what do you think is wrong with movies like these? Why do you think such movies should be banned? And what are the good portrayal of media? Like Kapoor and Sons was a very great movie to watch, where towards the end also you didn't realize that Fawad Khan was a gay person. So that is in reality how people are from the community, right? And earlier I also discussed that even nursery and KG children are very open about, I would say we are very open about gender equality. We don't go there and say, okay, this is a lesbian person or this is a gay person. We open their minds by giving them gender neutral coloring books, for instance, wherein a boy is playing with a dollhouse, a boy is doing a ballet, for instance. So these kind of messages are being portrayed at a very young age. And even in third, fourth, fifth grade, so we have different section, different age groups do different things. Like third, fourth, and fifth children, they reinvent their own fairy tale stories. For instance, Cinderella doesn't have to depend on the Prince Charming to, be successful. She becomes an entrepreneur. Things like that, they come up on
Wonderful.
their own. So these are the kind of things that we are doing as an initiative. And this year, we are urging other schools also. We are helping them to initiate these campaigns. Like there was a school from Chennai, there was an 11th standard girl who called us and said that we would like to initiate. Please help us convince our management to start breaking barriers. So it's really wonderful to see that across the country, the youth is so powerful that they want to join hands together and bring about a very important change. And I really urge all schools, and I say this in open platforms, that you need to have ally campaigns, ally cells in your own schools. Because if you want to see a safe future, then you need to start young. So I'm
Absolutely.
very proud to say that my children are doing wonderfully well.
Yeah.
And our aim is definitely to break stereotypes in the older generation, which is very difficult because every age is important. Society, parents, educators, children, everybody need to work in tandem in order to achieve what we want to achieve.
True.
So yes, we are trying to. So during weekends, we ask our children to watch Canadian films, documentary films like Beauty, like Sticks and Stones. It's another very beautiful story. So we want children to sit with their own families at home and watch it together, and then have a discussion. So I
Yes,
Beautiful.
think this will definitely bring about change.
that's a great idea, actually.
It's
In
been
fact, Vedika,
it's
this
been
is
Thank
so forwarding.
yeah, absolutely. Vedika, this is actually one of the things that you said, like when we talk to schools from IKFF, sort of trying to show them, films or talk about gender in schools, one of the biggest excuses that we get is that parents don't accept it. So, of course, we know parents' mindsets have to be changed and we need to start somewhere. When you've been doing this campaign, haven't you sort of faced any resistance from parents or
you.
any other groups?
The biggest advantage that we had was we sent out letters to the management, sent out letters and emails to parents saying that we are initiating a campaign like breaking barriers in school, and if you have any issue, please let us know in advance. We will not involve your child, but we are definitely going ahead with the campaign. And to our surprise, we did not receive a single backlash from our own parent community. And because they believed in what the school's ethos were, equality. And we are very proud of the fact that we have very educated. It's not that, they come from a very hi-fi background. Not every child comes from that kind of So there are children of the EWS families also who are studying in the school in the same class. But the kind of trust that they had in the school, that they would not do anything wrong, they would not preach anything wrong to our children, that was what was very important. I think we gained that trust, and we said that we need consent because we are involving minors in it, and they were very happily agreeing to what we did. But the biggest roadblock was from other schools, because our aim was not just to train our own children in the school, but we wanted to train other schools around, because that is what will create ripple effect. So when we reached out, it would take me at least a month to convince one school that let us come and conduct a 1 hour long presentation with your children to spread the importance of gender equality. But we did, and we are very proud of covering about 4,000 schools till now from
Wow.
2013, which is very, very good. And I just want the numbers to keep rising, and now we are definitely wanting breaking barriers to be there in every other school. So I'm sure it's going to happen very soon. Definitely children, principals are not convinced with the idea because of the parent board. They fear what parents would say. But it's high time that they realize when sex education can be taught, why should they shy away from sexuality? Why should they shy away from anything being talked about in open? So because of this taboo, only issues and problems arise, and we need to put an end to this. So parents need to really open up, because as long as school is preaching something, parent is preaching something else, it doesn't work. So you need to invite parents also, and I'm sure so happy to see Sweekar, what they're doing for the parents. There are many other institutions, even Christina is doing so well. I'm so proud to be a part of this panel today. And Richa was invited to our own school as a mental health expert. She gave a talk, she was there with us. So it was really a nice, proud moment.
I mean,
Thank
fantastic. Yeah. Actually, there's a lot still to talk about. We are unfortunately short of time. So I would like to leave with one last question for all of you, and I'd love to hear what each of you have to say about it. I think one of the biggest thing that we're all talking about is that, yes, our children might be ready, and obviously this is not something new, but how do you change mindsets? How do you talk to the parents and the educators? So my question is that how do you if each of you can come up with your suggestions, that how can parents and educators educate themselves about gender and sexuality, and how can they overcome their own prejudices and conditioning? Like, even if they want to, there's a very strong conditioning that's there at the back of it. So what would you want to tell those parents and educators who are ready to find out more, but how does one overcome their own prejudices and conditioning that they've sort of grown up with all these years?
I'm so sorry to just poke in again. I'm just about to leave. So just one last line that I would quickly like to wrap up is that please open up the mindsets, like Chitra ma'am also very clearly stated that parents are parents at the end of the day. It shouldn't matter what your child is. If you are a loving parent, if you've given birth to a child, then you should love and embrace your child, irrespective of who he or she is or who they want to fall in love with, right? So please open up your mindset, and it's not a favor that you're doing to your child by accepting your child. It's their birthright to be what they want to be as an individual. So please don't show it up like a favor. So it's your duty to accept your child. Yeah.
So beautifully said, Vedika. Thank you for that. And yeah, I mean, I'll just continue with the others, but thank you so much, Vedika, for being here. And
thank you for inviting me. Much love to all of you. I'm going to stay in touch. All the best.
All the best, Vedika. Yeah. So yes, so coming back to everyone with this question, and I'm not talking only about parents of queer kids. I mean, if we want to actually create a society of, with an inclusive society, we have to talk about, everyone. So how does one help them get, how can the grown-ups sort of get over their prejudices and conditioning? Any thoughts? Christina, would you like to add something?
Thank you, Neha. Great question. I'm not going to pretend that I have a definitive answer to it, because I really think, first of all, there has to be a desire. And if you're not curious, if you don't have a desire to embrace people who are not exactly the same as you, if that's not part of your makeup, then that can be a place it's very easy to get stuck. And I would say, honestly, that what is required is healing. Healing for everybody of their own wounds and their own traumas and their own, to become aware of all the places where they have been made wrong for how they show up as not the right kind of girl, not the right kind of boy, not loving in the right way, not feeling as open to their husband or wife or girlfriend as they are told they're supposed to be, or where all the places where they might be justifying the things that they've chosen to live with and are sort of continuing to kind of dig into their rightness of the sacrifices and the ways that they've limited themselves in their own life by imposing them on others. And it's not for the faint of heart, that kind of healing, right? And that kind of self-awareness. And so I think there's that. And then I think that the other part of it is when you change the atmosphere in the ways that everybody on this panel is doing by putting language out there that people can reach for, by sort of giving some other model for people to tune to, you know. I was so moved, Chitra, if it's okay if I call you that, when shorten your name, when
Chitra,
when you said that when your daughter came to you, because you had such love and such respect for her, that when it was her who said she was a lesbian, you thought, so then lesbians must be okay, right? And so I think, you know, because my parents didn't do that to me. They said, oh, then if you're a lesbian, then you're not who we thought you were, right? We thought you were wonderful and we loved you and they respected me deeply and all of that, right? But that they, because they had a very, very rigid mindset. So eventually they changed and it took time. I'm taking too long.
No,
things have to happen on a lot of levels, and I think for me as somebody interacting with them, I think then my job is also to remain curious. Why do you feel that way? What information do you have about that makes you come to that conclusion? Is there anything, can I give you some more information? Are you open to hearing that? You know, and engaging in that kind of process. So.
Sure. Richa, Srushti, would you want to add anything? Chitra?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think, so 1 month ago, I had a parent who called me up and she was talking about her 7-year-old kid. And she's like, I think my kid is trans. And I'm like, okay. She like, I don't know what to do. I'm very worried right now. I'm very, very worried. I don't know what to do. So I noticed that there was a lot of anxiety because, you know, she was really trying her best to understand what her child is going through. And she really, really wanted to support her parent. So, you know, first of all, if there are parents who are listening to this right now, this is exactly what I told her about her child. And I'm also just want to say this out loud is allow your child to express themselves however they want to. Of course, you want to be mindful that you're not harming your own self. You're not harming other people. But, you know, considering if these two things we're safe, like people are safe, it's okay if somebody wants to cut their hair short, because I know somebody for the longest time that, you know, their parents just weren't okay with the child cutting their hair short. And that is something that led to so much of dysphoria in this particular person, because they just be like, I want to cut my hair short, but my parents just aren't allowing me to do so. You know, so that's one example. So allowing your child to just express however they want to, you know, don't stick into this rigidity that, oh, because you're a boy. And I'm saying this from such typical Indian context, you're a boy, so, you know, you need to be raised a certain way. You're not allowed to express yourself. You're not allowed to cry. We don't realize these are leading to so many different mental health issues in so many unsettling ways in the future. But I think allow your child to express. Don't look at them as, oh, you're a boy, you're a girl, hence things need to be a certain way. Just look at them as a person. And if they want to do something that's, again, I repeat this again, as a mental health professional, that's not harming themselves, that's not harming other people, it's just uncomfortable for you as a parent or as an educator because you're not used to this. Like, if it is a person who is assigned female at birth and, you know, they say they want to cut their hair short, you're just like, oh, but no, but women are supposed to have long hair, right? And yeah, you know, basically stuff like this. So if so I mean, I'm 29 right now, I'm unmarried, I don't plan to get married, but I have friends who are married. I have friends who also now have started having kids. I've already started letting my friends know that, you know, allow your child to express themselves however they want. And I'm so happy that they are doing that. So, you know, I have a friend whose child is 2 years right now, and she really lets her child to just express themselves, whatever it is, whether it is whatever they want to wear, not focusing on the color, not focusing on whether there's a toy in their hand or a doll in their hand or a you know, Batman in their hand or a car, whatever it is that they want, it's okay. You know, you don't want to train them or like already start conditioning them that no, this is what you need to have because you were born a male, so now I'm going to train you to be this way. So just, I think that's the least we can do, is in your homes just allow your child to start expressing. There is so much in terms of a bond that will start growing, because if you're talking about gender identity, as early as 4, 5, and 6, you'll start understanding that this child is expressing the gender identity. Sexuality might come in a little later. Being an Indian, we do not like talking about sexuality to our parents. I would still not talk about partners like I do right now, of course. But for such a long time, I don't want to talk about partners to my parents because they're not going to get it, right? But if I'm given that acceptance, if I'm given that space where I can express myself, and imagine me being 9, 10, 11 and given that space, I think that's a blessing. That's like a blessing. I wish everybody around me has it, right? So this might sound like a lot, but if we start doing it, taking baby steps, I'm sure we can all do this.
True. Yeah. Chitra, you wanted to add something?
No, I just wanted to add this, that first, that I'm really, sometimes I feel amazed that whatever, the way I was brought up, my sisters were brought up, and girls are still struggling to get that space. I always had, I sent you photos. I always had 1-inch thing.
Yeah.
Richa's seen me. This is all because of pandemics, because I couldn't go out, that it's grown. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. And one thing I wanted to say was how to educate, or rather transform parents, educators, I think through personal sharing. And that's what we do in Sweekar. We don't only support the parents who to whom their children have come out. Of course, we support them if they are struggling. We have give them information, but we also work at creating allies. Like we go and talk. I have myself gone and talked to various institutions, whoever invites me. I always say, invite me and I'm coming, but I prefer live. So about your own experience as a woman, I'm a heterosexual, but as a woman, I had to cross many barriers. And so my child, she's a lesbian, but the way she was brought up, it was only because she was worried in her own mind, looking around. She herself was never bullied, but she was scared to come out to us because of lack of information. That's all it is. So I would like to say 2 things. Like we do in Sweekar, one must share. Through sharing with each other, we give support, but we can also do it to parents who are not sure about their children being LGBTQIA or being heterosexual, because the parents can be dictatorial. They make a life plan and they want the child to fit into it. It can't be. Your child is a living thing. It has its own mind right from birth. And therefore, being righteous, being rigid will only bring misery to both you and your child. Then why have the child at all? I would ask that very crudely, So instead, love is, of course, acceptance, of course. But as Christine said, you have to stop being rigid. You have to open up. But how can that happen? I don't like people preaching to me. So I suppose others also don't like preaching. But when you see films like Beauty, or when you take parents or people who can just share their own experiences, their own struggles, and with that, a school has a counselor, and the parents slowly loosen up, so they don't mind going to Richa or any other, a counselor or a mental health professional. That's the way. It's a very slow process, mind you. It will be a slow process. And I'd like to tell all the very young parents and all that also beware of wrong information. Always please go to experts. She said, Vedica, I think, Srushti, one click, but that one click can also give you wrong information.
Absolutely. True.
Internet can be double-edged weapon. So much better that you go through sharing of people who've had life experiences. And that's what we do in Sweekar, come back to it.
Super.
And so any parents who have doubts can first go to Richa, help the child to come out, and then we are there to support. Isn't it, Richa? Aren't we partners, all of us?
I feel
Absolutely.
like every person plays such a key role, whether it's an expert, whether it's a parent. I mean, I've sat on a couple of trainings with Chitra and a lot of parents together, and it was such an empowering space because every parent was like, "Oh, my name is so and so, and my son is gay." And I was just like, wow, like a room full of parents that are accepting, that are very proudly saying, I have a gay son, I have a trans child. I don't think I've met so many parents together, and it can be a very overwhelming space.
Can I just say
Also
one thing? Sorry to interrupt. That time when you did 2 years ago, mainly we were just somewhere by, but mainly gays were more. There were some lesbians, 1 or 2 trans. Now you will not believe, Richa and everybody, 2.5, in 2017. So how many years, whatever count. So, about 3.5 years, before we started with only 10 children's parents, and today we are more than 80, and a huge number of parents are the ones whose children are going through transition or have already transitioned.
Nice.
And they are so proud, and I think it's very difficult for them. And therefore, why I'm saying this is everybody who spoke about the importance of a parent.
True.
And that is therefore an organization like Sweekar, who is basically was started as a parent support group, and it still is. I just want you to know about it.
Thank you. It's fabulous, and it's so important for our viewers to know about that.
And even schools, organizations, institutions, they invite us, or while pandemic is going on, it's like on these panels. Many of us go out, speak, because we are trained for 6 months, wasn't it? 6 months we got trained in everything, so that we can talk to other parents and share and try and transform them. But it's a slow process. We have to be patient.
Absolutely. Wonderful. In fact, I would just like to add, and I wish we could have spoken about it more, was that along with the role of the parent is also the role of the teachers, and teachers in the individual classroom. There are little ways that they can ensure that their children feel included, their children feel equal to each other, and yeah.
What I mean is that teachers the children spend more time with the teachers actually nowadays.
Exactly.
Therefore, they just have to be sensitive, and you might give a lot of importance to, somebody's a scholar, somebody's very talented, but actually a teacher's, according to me, because I've also been a professor before, so the responsibility is to take up a child whose abilities are less.
True.
A child who is not a very good athlete, a child who may not understand mathematics or something else, or reading problems. And my daughter's partner in Australia, she's an educationist. And so I go to her school where she's sometimes, working part-time or whatever. And there I have seen how they treat each child as equal, and each child is told that you are also special because you may not have this talent, but you have this talent. You can do this. They're always talking of positive things. And for that, you have to be, parents and teachers have to be just compassionate, open. That's all they have to do.
Absolutely.
And not think they know everything. We know everything. That's all.
Yeah. Srushti, I'll come to you for this. And do you have anything, like any parting remarks now? Because we are going to wrap up soon.
Yeah, so I do think that, the minds that start shaping at such a young age, as Richa mentioned. From the age of 4 and 5, we start seeing gender, and I think parents need to understand that they need to stop seeing gender as these two opposite, contrasting ideas of male and female, and start seeing it as more of a spectrum. And wherever your child wants to fall in, or falls in, it's really it's really their life. And I think it really starts, I mean, when I was just in 8th or 9th grade, I have this best friend. She's still my best friend, and she's heterosexual. But the moment I came out to her, within one go, there was no multiple questions. There was just, okay, I love you, and that's it. So if a child can understand another child, and today she just tells me, that even that time I knew it, and that it's not a rocket science. The whole part where she just said that acceptance is not really rocket science. It does take time. I mean, if I understand that if I took time, 17 years, to accept myself and to come to a conclusion, I understand that I do need to give my parents, that much time. But there needs to be, of them to come around. And it really is about, leaving the rigidity and, stopping the stigma. It's really about those acceptance.
In
And
fact,
it really,
Shruti, I'd like to add here is like one of the lines when I was just reading up from one parent, I think from Sweekar only, who'd said something like that. There are many things that we as human beings and even society don't understand, but the idea of rejecting it on the basis of unfamiliarity is wrong.
yeah,
And I think
yeah,
that sort of beautifully sort of sums up what we're all trying to say, that just being sort of open about it. And
yes,
I'm just so sorry for cutting you in, Srushti, but
no, that's
I would just
fine.
like to sort of thank all of you. It was just such a pleasure talking to each of one of you. Thank you for sharing your own stories. Uh, I had a lot of things in my list that I wanted to touch upon, but I'm hoping that we have another fantastic discussion like this and talk more about it and keep the conversation going, most importantly. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Neha. Thank you.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity,
Yeah.
Neha. And thank you, Christina, Srushti, Richa, Vedika. It was wonderful listening to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Likewise.
Thanks, Christina.
Thank you so much for making me
Yes.
part of it.
For those of us watching
Oh,
this, just wanted to also add that Richa will also be conducting a workshop, on the KRAYON app for parents and educators to sort of
Wow.
right.
actually come back with their questions and stuff during the next week. And I would strongly recommend you to sort of go for that. And we also have a section called Rainbow Connection on the KRAYON app. And we have some wonderful films alongside Beauty, which sort of talk about the LGBTQ issues and, talk to parents and talk to children. Uh, do watch those when you can. They'll be up for a week. The festival ends on 20th December. So, everyone has 1 week to watch. Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much. And have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Same to
Thank
you.
you so much for inviting
So
me.
much.
It's been such a pleasure to be here. And thank you for everything that you're doing with this festival and that all of you are doing.
Thank you. Bye-bye.